Hello audience, this is Thomas on behalf of the Cougars. Before we start our culminating performance task, I would like to say that we have written much more than what we are saying, but are shortening what we are saying so viewers can get the gist of our presentation. If you wish to read more about our presentation, you can pause the video or visit the actual prezi. Thank you.
Biography of Ray Bradbury. Ray Douglas Bradbury was an American writer born on August 22, 1920 in Waukegan, Illinois, USA. He is famous for his fantasy, mystery, science fiction, and horror pieces of writing. His youth was a great inspiration to many novels he wrote, growing up with his Swedish mom and English father. Additionally, Bradbury found inspiration from Hollywood while living in Los Angeles. His first found inspiration and influence from an author at age 12, Edgar Allan Poe. He later found himself finding inspiration from many science fiction authors such as Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, and Arthur C. Clarke. Bradbury's first published story was Hollerbochen's Dilemma in Forrest J. Ackerman's magazine, Imagination. He sold his first story, The Lake, at age 22 and decided to become a full-time writer by the end of 1942. Published in 1953, Ray Bradbury wrote his first and only science fiction novel, Fahrenheit 451. He based the novel on a vision of the future 4 or 5 decades from now, but after observing a couple walking together, with his wife listening to her music device and completely ignoring her husband, he realized his vision for the novel was becoming less science fiction and more non-fiction. Furthermore, Ray Bradbury has earned many awards and achievements for his writing career. More recently, during the 2012 NASA Curiosity rover landing, the landing site on planet Mars was named Bradbury Landing to honor Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury died where his career started, in Los Angeles, California, on June 5, 2012, at the age of 91 after a lengthy illness.
We're going to first move on to the summaries. The Hearth and the Salamander. Guy Montag is a fireman whose duty in this futuristic United States is to burn books. After willfully burning books on duty one evening, he heads home only to encounter a young girl named Clarice McClellan on his way, and she talks about her perception of aspects of life and her unorthodox way of living. Guy Montag sees Clarice more until one day she disappears. During his work that day, he meets an old lady who is obdurate to leave her house full of books and lights a match, setting her and her books to flames. The next morning, Montag decides to stay home after what he witnessed the other day and is visited by Captain Beatty, who explains how book burning began and how people are much happier without books. Determinedly, Montag wishes to find something of value within these books and asks Mildred, his wife, to help him by looking through stacks of books he kept in his ventilator, which she eventually reluctantly agrees to. The Sieve and the Sand. Montag finds reading the books futile as he cannot understand what he is reading, and thus looks for a mentor to teach him. Montag decides to take the subway to go visit Faber, an old English professor. He then decides to encourage Faber to help him as Beatty may visit his house again, and thus Faber gives him a two-way radio device. Montag arrives home and sees Mildred and her two friends, Mrs. Phelps and Mrs. Bowles, in the TV parlor. He begins to read them a poem despite the woman's unwillingness, and eventually they leave. Subsequently, Montag goes to the fire station to present Captain Beatty a book, which he was suspected of taking, but an alarm goes off and they board the fire engine, which arrives at Montag's house. Burning bright. Under Beatty's orders, Montag burns his own house, but as Beatty finds a device in Montag's ear given by Faber, Montag also burns Beatty. The mechanical hound appears and pierces Montag's leg, causing it to go numb, and Montag then burns the automated dog. With the anesthetic wearing off, he visits Faber, who instructs him to follow railroad tracks to find groups of homeless old scholars. Montag jumps into a river, which strips him of his scent, making it impossible for the hound to find him. From the river, Montag is able to find the railroad track and follows it to find a camp of homeless intellectuals, led by a man named Granger. The leader also explains that there are methods to recall the books you have read, and that when the war finishes, they will be able to assist in rewriting the books. Suddenly, bombs are dropped on the city, causing a huge explosion and leaving the city in ruins. Granger explains that mankind is like a phoenix, and now it is time for them to help rebuild society from its own ashes. And now, moving on to our next part.
This is Matthew connecting Fahrenheit 451 to the Merchant of Venice. When the customs of 16th century society in the Merchant of Venice are compared with the futuristic culture within Fahrenheit 451, a stark contrast is present. However, if one looks further into the depth of the ideals, beliefs, and dogmas of these societies, numerous similarities can be seen. Firstly, both societies express the desire for the unity and homogenization of its citizens. In Fahrenheit 451, it is practiced in schools, which leads to apathy and materialism. In The Merchant of Venice, homogenization is seen in the fact that the Jewish religion is seen as wrong. Also, the societies in each piece of literature share the commonality of harsh law. Within Fahrenheit 451, it is permissible to kill anyone who reads books. In The Merchant of Venice, the law is willing, however reluctantly, to let Shylock take a pound of the flesh from Antonio simply because he forfeited a debt. Finally, both societies are analogous in the sense that materialistic wealth is entwined and necessary for happiness. In Fahrenheit 451, it is primarily seen in citizens' focus on expensive things such as fast cars and TV walls, while in The Merchant of Venice, evidence of materialism is seen through the assumption that Antonio is sad because of his wealth being at risk. The Merchant of Venice and Fahrenheit 451 also have very similar characters. For example, both Mildred and Shylock share the same greed for materialism. In Shylock, this is seen in his profession as a usurer. In Mildred, we see her greed in the fact that she cares for nothing but her TV family and her seashell radio. Parallels are also seen between Antonio and Guy Montag. Both of these characters are similar because both are unhappy with their lives, and both face undeserved punishments for petty deeds. In The Merchant of Venice, Antonio's bond to the Jew is forfeit, and because of this, it is impossible that Antonio, should live. In Fahrenheit 451, Montag is to be killed simply because he had the tenacity to read books. Finally, connections can be drawn between Portia and Clarice, because both of them go against the cultural norm. Clarice is queer simply because she thinks independently and is otherwise different from apathetic society in which she lives. This is similar to how Portia is different, shown by the fact that she is brave enough to disguise herself as a man, in a society where ladies are supposed to be dainty, graceful, and exquisite. Congruency between The Merchant of Venice and Fahrenheit 451 are also present in the themes within the literatures. Both share themes such as isolation, destructive characters, and justice. The theme of isolation is seen in Shakespeare's work through characters like Shylock, who is isolated because of his religion, and Antonio, who is isolated because of his sadness and lack of romance. In Fahrenheit 451, isolation is seen in Montag, Faber, Clarice, and the society at the end, all of which are isolated because they think independently. Destructive characters are present in the likes of Shylock in The Merchant of Venice and Captain Beatty in Fahrenheit 451. Finally, the theme of justice, or rather injustice, is seen in The Merchant of Venice through the court case between Shylock and Antonio. In Fahrenheit 451, the theme of justice is seen through the firemen, who burn a woman alive because she would not leave her books, and through the hunt for Montag, and the murder of an innocent homeless man.
I'll be talking about Fahrenheit 451 and The Help, Connections and Literary Parallels. Many parallels can be drawn between societies in The Help by Catherine Stockett and Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Within both novels, many of the mothers act poorly towards their children, as they don't spend time with them. In Fahrenheit 451, the mothers rarely spend time with their children as they are in school for most of the time, and in The Help, the mothers let their maids take care of their children. The goals of parents in both societies also focus on materialistic wealth, as Mildred is always coaxing Montag to get a fourth television parlor, and the women of Miss Hilly Hillbrook's Bridge Club feel as if materialistic wealth is at the utmost important. Segregation can also be found in both novels through different forms. Within Fahrenheit 451, segregation occurs between the ignorant and the knowledgeable, and in The Help, segregation occurs due to difference in race. Connections between The Help and Fahrenheit 451 are also present in similarities of different characters. Montag is similar to Skeeter and Abilene, as all three characters want the truth about society to be revealed. In Fahrenheit 451, Guy Montag wishes for others to see the truth about how ugly society has become, and Abilene and Skeeter wish to tell the truth about how black maids are being treated through a novel. Montag also shares his desire for true happiness with Minnie, as they have both been in relationships where they truly were not happy in. Montag's relationship with Mildred is shallow, as neither can remember the first time they even met, and Minnie suffers from an abusive relationship with Leroy. More character parallels can be drawn between Celia and Mildred, as Mildred doesn't want anything to do with the books Montag has brought home in fear of what others may think of her, and Celia wishes desperately to join Miss Hilly's bridge club so she can make friends within the city. When comparing The Help and Fahrenheit 451, the themes of truth and the importance of literature and writing are seen throughout both novels. Truth is hidden in both societies in these novels. In Fahrenheit 451, society decides to get rid of all the knowledge within books by having firemen burn them, and the white women of Jackson, Mississippi distort the truth through gossip and treat their maids poorly, which Abilene and Skeeter wish to show through their novel. Additionally, the theme of the importance of literature and writing are a focal point in both novels, as Montag and scholars wish to provide knowledge back to civilization through books, and Skeeter wishes to show the tough life of a black maid through her novel. These books take place many years apart from each other, yet are still connected through these common themes.
Now this is the book comparison between To Kill a Mockingbird and Fahrenheit 451. Both main characters develop through the course of their novel. Guy Montag and Jean-Louise Scout Finch begin their novels being oblivious towards different aspects of their society. Montag would blindly follow his job requirement of burning down any instance of a printed book without questioning his government as to why he does this. Scout, on the other hand, began her novel oblivious towards social inequality and why it exists. Additionally, both characters begin asking why these limitations exist, trying to find a way to get past them. Once Montag begins to question why instead of how, he finds himself stealing a book from a woman's house, blaming it on involuntary bodily reflex. Scout does a similar action by defending her father and Tom Robinson. Both characters were brought to awareness of the society they live in, while at the same time trying to find answers as to why it is like that. Both novels use society to display ignorance. In Fahrenheit 451, the population is taught that all books are illegal, not provided a definite answer why. Through the rise of technology and government censorship, the people of the dystopian society would never have a chance to even give a book a read. They would even enjoy watching them burn. Society in To Kill a Mockingbird is taught to believe that any black person does not deserve all the perks and all the benefits of a white person. The public are led to believe that the black community is poison to society, so naturally, the townsfolk of Maycomb would treat them like poison. Even when the people are shown in both societies what they are hidden from, they all still have trouble thinking otherwise. In Fahrenheit 451, when Mildred is shown the books hidden from all her life, she still finds it difficult to accept books as a form of art because it is against the law. In To Kill a Mockingbird, the jury during the case of the Tom Robinson case was provided with very likely sounding evidence that Tom Robinson was actually just trying to help Mayella Ewell, not rape her. Unfortunately, because the whole jury was white, the jury was still able to convince Tom Robinson of his crime, leading him to commit suicide. Both novels portray similar themes. They share the similar theme of justice. In Fahrenheit 451, the firemen would kill innocent people in order to burn books in the name of justice. In To Kill a Mockingbird, the justice system of Maycomb is prejudiced against the black community. Additionally, both novels displayed the theme of deceiving appearances. Guy Montag was seen as a fireman that hated literature and enjoying destroying books, but later he realizes that the books contain beauty and do not deserve to be destroyed. In To Kill a Mockingbird, the townsfolk of Maycomb saw Tom Robinson as a criminal because he was black.
Characters. There are various similarities between characters in Inherit the Wind and Fahrenheit 451. Primarily, in both works, protagonists Guy Montag and Bertram Cates both struggle between their belief in knowledge and freedom of thought versus the status quo of society, in which thought-provoking ideas and pieces of literature are frowned upon. Furthermore, both Guy Montag from Fahrenheit 451 and Rachel Brown from Inherit the Wind are in search of happiness, Montag through literature and Brown through love. Finally, both antagonists from both works, Captain Beatty and Matthew Harrison Brady, use literature in their arguments against literature and freedom of thought. Largely, it is evident that there are similar characters in both Fahrenheit 451 and Inherit the Wind. Now we're moving on to themes. Through a comparison of Fahrenheit 451 and Inherit the Wind, themes of freedom of thought versus ignorance are apparent in both works. Chiefly, both protagonists from Fahrenheit 451 and Inherit the Wind, Guy Montag and Bertram Cates, are stripped of their freedom of thought. In addition, both literary pieces share the theme of ignorance. In Fahrenheit 451, society remains aloof to the government's idea of destroying literature, displaying ignorance. In Inherit the Wind, Henry Drummond, the defense attorney for Bertram Cates, explains the importance of ideas and knowledge versus willful ignorance. It is fascinating that while both books remain dissimilar in settings, they share similar and timeless themes. Now we're moving on to society. Numerous associations can be seen amid societies in Fahrenheit 451 and Inherit the Wind. Both works have plots that outline the oppression of an individual who questions the faults of society. In Fahrenheit 451, Guy Montag looks to fill an empty void in his life with literature, and is soon being hunted down by government-owned hounds, running for his life. During Inherit the Wind, Bertram Cates inquires about Hillsborough's mindless belief in creationism, and ends up on trial for speaking his mind. Moreover, societies in both works underestimate the power and ideas behind literature. In Fahrenheit 451, society does not object to the government's plan to abolish all types of literature. Some even agree with this movement. Additionally, there are faulty and malevolent institutions in Fahrenheit 451 and Inherit the Wind. For instance, in Fahrenheit 451, the government tries to gain control over society by destroying literature that is deemed thought-provoking. Flawed institutions in Inherit the Wind include Hillsborough's Baptist Church, led by evangelist Jeremiah Brown. Brown uses the fear of God in order to prevent society from looking at other religions or beliefs outside the Baptist Church. As a whole, there are many connections amongst societies in both works.
This is Matthew on news events. The novel Fahrenheit 451 can be connected to many modern-day news events. Here are a few articles that connect with the novel. The Globe and Mail, millennials want to be rich, have everything, but don't want to work, study finds. This article strongly connects to Ray Bradbury's dystopian society in Fahrenheit 451. The article focuses on research that found present-day teenagers are becoming more and more materialistic. Millennials have a strong desire for wealth and material things, but are unwilling to do the hard work to achieve this. This concept of greed and material wealth is almost the exact same concept that is present everywhere in the society of Fahrenheit 451. In the dystopian society of the novel, people are indifferent to the reality around them. They care only for the entertainment in the form of TV parlors, seashell radios, and fast cars. The society is the epitome of materialism and apathy. This article discusses the path of our culture towards that unfortunate epitome, displayed in the alarming statistics that 62% of teenagers want to be rich, yet 39% of those teenagers are not actually willing to do the work necessary to gain that wealth. The Guardian. Book burning, fanning the flames of hatred. This informational news article outlines and comments upon a history of book burning within society. This explicitly connects to Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, as the book's plot is based around firefighters who burn books. The major difference is that modern culture, to an extent, condemns the burning of books. It is only minorities that believe it is necessary. In Fahrenheit 451, however, Book burning is endorsed by the government and accepted by society. The minority groups are those who believe book burning to be wrong and a destruction of knowledge. Nevertheless, a strong connection is present between this article and Bradbury's novel. Both discuss the fact that book burning is a strong symbol for the limitation of knowledge and could lead to an indifferent, apathetic society. The Economist, The Great Firewall, The Art of Concealment. This article focuses on the censorship that exists in the internet within China, nicknamed the Great Firewall. This censorship limits freedom of speech, opinions, as well as access to information and knowledge. Amongst other things, various pages are banned on the internet, such as web pages for human rights groups and foreign newspapers. If a user tries to get onto one of these pages, they are blocked. Also, if users search a banned word on Google, they are blocked and unable to use the search engine for 90 seconds. This censorship can easily be connected to the burning of books and limitation of transfer of knowledge in Fahrenheit 451. Ray Bradbury uses many literary devices in Fahrenheit 451 to increase the interest of his writing. I'll just go over a few of them. Symbolism is defined as a person, place, or object that represents something beyond itself. Symbolism can be used to help the reader understand an idea or to emphasize a point. There are many symbols in Fahrenheit 451, such as the phoenix, the salamander, and the mechanical hound. The phoenix represents rebirth, and can be analogized with the group of book readers at the end, who are reborn from a society that made books extinct. The salamander, a mythical creature born from fire, and fire itself represent destruction. Finally, the mechanical hound can be taken as representing an unstoppable, mindless force that can only follow the commands of others, not think independently, similar to the people within the society. Simile. The definition of simile is a comparison using like or as. Similes are also used to describe objects and establish ideas. In Fahrenheit 451, similes are a commonplace. For example, in Part 1, Bradbury writes, "She had a very thin face, like the dial in a small clock," in regards to describing Clarice. Theme. The definition of theme is the message or major topic within a story. Themes are present to allow the reader to become more engaged with the novel, and so that the reader can extrapolate the book's teaching beyond the book itself. In Fahrenheit 451, there are many themes, including destructive characters, justice, deceiving appearances, isolation, and prejudice. Irony. The definition of irony is the use of words to express something other than, and especially the opposite of, the literal meaning. Irony can be used for humor, or to make/emphasize an important idea. In Fahrenheit 451, irony is everywhere. One of the most prominent examples is in the fact that Montag, a fireman who is supposed to be burning books, actually reads them and is willing to risk his life because of them. Personification. The definition of personification is to give human-like qualities to an inanimate object. Personification is used to make something more relatable, to present an idea, or to emphasize a certain characteristic of something. In Fahrenheit 451, the mechanical hound is often personified, perhaps to make it more terrifying, or to make it serve as a symbol of the society in which it exists. Is Matthew on novel terms. There are many interesting and rarely used words within Fahrenheit 451. There are many listed on the screen, but I'll just go over a few of them. Stratum on page 12 is defined as a level within a system or a layer of society. Proclivity on page 30 is defined as a natural tendency to behave in a particular way. Saccharine on page 77 is defined as excessively sweet and ingratiating. Perfunctory on 105 is defined as done as a matter of duty or custom, without thought, attention, or genuine feeling. Finally, limn on page 128 is defined as to draw or paint a picture of somebody or something, especially in outline.
This is the poem comparison between the books and the poem Manifesto. The Help. The poem brings the idea of racial segregation to attention. In the book The Help, a black maid would usually have to wake up early and take care of a white woman's child all day, following under strict orders such as using a race-specific bathroom. This type of treatment against the black community shows how separated the two cultures were, and the poem Manifesto describes why this is a problem in stanza 4. Despite there being many threats against society within America, what makes it strong is the vast quilt of patchwork cultures and multi-gendered identities. This is the link with Inherit the Wind. The poem links with the novel Inherit the Wind through the censorship of ideas due to a personal belief of a greater good. In the book, the town of Hillsborough bans the teaching of Darwinism and evolution because of their strict religious beliefs. Both the book and poem demonstrate the ignorance of getting rid of sensible ideas just because it goes against your own beliefs. This is a link with To Kill a Mockingbird. Both the poem and the novel To Kill a Mockingbird present the themes of social inequality. In the book, social status has a prominent role, proven by the prejudice against the Ewell family and the black community. The poem links with To Kill a Mockingbird by describing social elitists, believing their opinion is the truest. This is the link with The Merchant of Venice. Both the poem and the screenplay, The Merchant of Venice, brings up the common theme of acceptance. Both Shylock and Antonio cannot find themselves accepting each other due to their religions. The poem speaks to all believers of any faith that if they choose not to accept someone into society for what they believe in, they cannot stand for their God. This is the link with Fahrenheit 451. Both the poem and the novel Fahrenheit 451 represent the theme of censorship in order to follow one social structure. In the novel, the government has formed a group of firemen to burn any printed book as well as the houses in which they are hidden. What the government at the time failed to realize is that the ideas found in books would still live on through those willing to share them. This is brought up in the 6th stanza, lines 5 to 6. Ideas are incombustible, and therein lies your real fear. These are going to be the poem comparisons with the poem Willful Ignorance and the books we have read this year. This is the link with The Help. The poem and the book both take into account the willful ignorance people have in society. In the book The Help, the white population mistreat the black community because they have not been taught to accept them. The poem speaks of a person willing to teach acceptance, but people choose not to learn it. This is the link with Inherit the Wind. The poem and the book both deal with people not being able to grow and evolve if they cannot accept new things. The book Inherit the Wind deals with a Christian town Hillsborough accusing a man named Bertram Cates of teaching evolution to children. The poem speaks of woe of willful ignorance not letting anyone to grow. The bane of the world stems from this woe, which kills our ability as a people to grow. Bradbury was never able to see beyond his attention-seeking ways as he was ignorant to the reality that is Darwinism. This is the link to Kill a Mockingbird. The poem and the book both deal with different forms of prejudice and how they impede the growth of a society. In the book To Kill a Mockingbird, the town of Maycomb is racist against the black community, sexist against women, and simply aim to oppress anyone that is not like them. In stanza 5 and 6 of the poem, the poet describes different forms of oppression impeding the progression of knowledge. This is the link with The Merchant of Venice. Just like The Help and the screenplay and the poem both link ideas of ignorance and its consequence. In The Merchant of Venice, Shylock and Antonio hated each other because of their religions. The poem describes willful ignorance as being a product of an unawareness of acceptance, and this is what is shown between Antonio and Shylock. This is the link between the poem and Fahrenheit 451. The poem and the book deal with a character that yearns to change the way their society functions. In Fahrenheit 451, Guy Montag has the idea of forming a rebellion in order to bring down and expose the government system. In the poem, the first and second stanzas speaks about a man willing to teach ignorant people about acceptance, hope, and to be free. The speaker wishes to educate his society in order to allow growth and the progression of knowledge.
If I could teach the people to open their eyes, look past the darkness, reach for the skies, I'd teach them hope, acceptance, to be free, replace their ignorance, sorrow, and greed.
It's a sad thing when people won't learn. Willful ignorance is a stain, a burn. The bane of the world stems from this woe, which kills our ability as a people to grow.
Racism, sexism, oppression of different creeds are evil detriments which invariably impede the devoted progression of knowledge profound, the myriad amplification of countless minds unbound.
To you zealots and bigots and false patriots who live in fear of discourse, you screamers and banners and burners who would force books off shelves in your brand name of greater good, you say you're afraid for children, innocence ripe for corruption.
By perversion or sorcery on the page, but sticks and stones do break bones, and ignorance is no armor. You do not speak for me, and will not deny my kids magic in favor of miracles. You say you're afraid for America, the red, white, and blue corroded by terrorists, socialists, the sexually confused, but we are a vast quilt of patchwork cultures and multi-gendered identities. You cannot speak for those whose ancestors braved different seas.
You say you're afraid for God, the living word eroded by Muhammad and Darwin and Magdalene, but the omnipotent sculptor of heaven and earth designed intelligence. Surely you dare not speak for the Father who opens his arms to all. A word to the unwise. Torch every book, char every page, burn every word to ash. Ideas are incombustible, and therein lies your real fear.